Hey guys, welcome back to another video. In this one, we're going to be doing something a little bit different, and we're going to be doing a review on a pair of headphones, specifically the Meze 109 Pros. We're going to see if they're worth it or not. So let's get right into it. Alright, before we jump in, just for full disclosure, Meze did offer me a decent discount in order to do this review for them, but they did not give me any scripts or tell me to say anything in particular. They just sent them out with the discount, and I did pay some of my own money for them, so all of the thoughts in this video are my own. So yeah, with that out of the way, let's get into it. So right out of the gate, let's talk about the unboxing. And this is one of the best unboxing experiences I've ever had in a product. So the box itself, when we open it up, it has a very nice, smooth magnetic hatch that reveals the headphone case lying within it. And on top of there, you see a bit of a user manual. It's a product guide, shows you their other stuff that you might be interested in taking a look at. After we get that out of the way, we see the headphone hard case itself. And once we take that out, we're left with one more manual at the bottom. And this is sort of an art guide on the headphones themselves, where they're made, and shows some of the technology, gives you a deeper look at the drivers. You'll have fun going through that, learning more about the product you just bought. It's super nice that they included that, and even for cheaper stuff, I wish more companies would do that. It's interesting to learn about the parts and pieces that go into the products you use. So taking a closer look at the hard case, it's such a beautiful leather case. I'm not sure if it's real leather or just leather, but either way, it's nice, it's good for travel. If you need to go on a trip, you don't need to worry about these headphones getting banged around in a bag. And also inside of there is a little leather pouch, or pleather, like I said, I'm not totally sure. That has two cables in it, actually. So one's a bit longer, the other one's a little bit shorter. Unfortunately, neither of them are a balanced cable, but you know, that's not the end of the world. You can go get a different one. But I find it really nice that they included one long enough so you can, you know, sit on your couch, listen to music if you have like a home theater amp or something. It's super clutch. I mean, you don't always need a 10-foot long cable. You know, if you're just sitting at your desk, it can get tangled and messy, so having that shorter one and that longer one is a huge plus. So to me, it has everything it should have other than a balanced cable, but not everything can be a win. Alrighty, so to start off this review of the Meze 109 Pros, let's start out with the superficial. I mean, what these things look like when you get them out of the box. So yeah, the design is definitely one of their biggest superficial selling points. I mean, it's not going to affect the sound quality, but when you're wearing them on your head or just looking at them, they feel so premium. The weight of them is just awesome. No complaints. So cool. The wood grain is nothing short of art. Video cannot do it justice. You'll truly be able to appreciate it once you get them in your hands. Another thing with the design I really liked is the grill. Actually, when you're taking a look at it, the grill that's separating or making it so you can't touch the drivers of the headphones. I mean, it's just such a pretty color, it complements everything, and it has a really nice design to it. And you can even see a bit of the driver through that grill, and it's really cool. Plus, these headphones are a lot more comfortable than many other headphones on the market, just because a lot of them are big, they get heavy, they start to hurt. But these can wear them hours and be totally fine. I wear them for gaming all the time. So, good job, Meze, on the design. Alright, so next up in the review, I want to talk about the convenience of these headphones. Are they going to eat like a teenager or a toddler? In other words, do they need much power to drive? And you know, that's actually one of the selling points of these. I can plug them into anything and still have a good time listening. I can plug them into my phone. I might not have the most volume headroom, but I mean, it still works if you're in a pinch. I can plug them into my tablet and even my MacBook. I have the M1 MacBook Pro that has the upgraded DAC amp built in, and it runs them great. But this also kind of leads me into my next point. Even though you can run them off anything, doesn't really mean you should. When I was testing these headphones, I tested them for a long time, and I was very thorough with the testing, and I got to the point where I could pick out the differences between each amp I ran it off. So I've came to the conclusion that they're really amp picky. Not that they can't run off anything, it's just they will sound pretty different, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's fun to have some variety depending on what you like. So for example, my home theater amp, it really brought out the low notes, so it really extended the bass. I could really hear sub bass on a lot of songs, and it was honestly really fun. Again, not a bad thing, but in exchange you don't get quite as good highs. But when I plugged it into my MacBook, which I think is so far the best amp I have to run them off, you get a lot more sparkle. The voices are maybe a little bit clearer. You can still get that bass and you can still hear the sub bass. It's just not quite as much on my other amp. So that's something to keep in mind. You might want to invest in an amp that you know is good quality so that you can be listening to the best possible version of these headphones. I mean, after all, if you are spending the money for it, which I know is a lot, you might as well just spend $100 and get a good DAC amp. All right, so now what you've been waiting for, sound quality. I mean, you know, that's why you're here. It's a headphone review. You want to see if they sound good. With that out of the way, let's talk about the subjective sound first, and then I'll maybe show you some graphs and, you know, what exactly these things look like. All right, so first off, the bass. Now these things have slam bass. If you're a bass head, I mean, I'm sure there's headphones out there that comply with you better because these are pretty balanced in my opinion, but I don't think you'll be disappointed either because the bass on these is insane, and the sub bass extension is unlike anything I've ever heard before. Granted, I'm sure you'll be able to find similar headphones that can reach that extension with slight differences overall, but on these particularly, yeah, great sub bass. Cold Shoulder by Adele, and the beginning part you can just hear the rumble, and I've played off other speakers and you cannot hear that whatsoever. It makes you realize that other speakers, even like big ol' subwoofers, sometimes they just can't hit those low notes. Even though it extends really deep and slams really hard, it's still very transparent. You're not going to be totally distracted by it in the songs. Good example that you can test it on is Season 2, Episode 3 by Glass Animals. I think it's a great representation of where you can get that slam with the fun bass lines of the song, but everything else is just present. You don't have to worry about it getting lost in a muddy mess. So yeah, if you like bass. Now for the mids. To be completely transparent, I think you should maybe do a little extra research if the mids are super important to you. That's not to say I had any issues. I just know certain headphones are really mid-range forward, if that makes sense. You know, in my opinion, these are too. Just, you know, like the HD 600s, they have a very, very focused mid-range presentation, and these ones are a little more balanced. So if you're completely in it for the mid-range, you might have other options elsewhere, but I wouldn't let that distract you from the mid-range these already have. I mean, it's the best mid-range I've ever heard on a pair of headphones that I've personally tried. But as far as my experience goes, it's just, the mid-range is so beautifully presented. I've never had a pair of headphones where it feels like the singer is just singing straight into your ears. The soundstage is big enough where that mid-range is just pushed into your head and all the instruments are around it. It never gets lost. For example, I was listening to a song, Shadows, featuring Zoe Adore, and it was a crazy song, so much going on in it. It was dubstep, you know, practically listening to a wall of sound. Yet those vocals that usually get lost in a lot of other headphones I listen to were just so precise and right there in the middle of it all, not being lost to the ever-loving wall of sound that was blasting my eardrums. Alright, next up, treble. I think this is a part of the headphones that's super well done. I think it's one of the strong points. Every little cymbal crash or static pop in a song is so clear and precise. If you come from a pair of cheaper headphones, like let's just say any other like sub $200 headphone, you will be blown away at all the little details you're missing in your music. For example, I was listening to one song that I've heard a lot, and there's just this little static sound that goes in like a circular pattern. Never heard it before, and just loop in there, and it's just tiny little point in the song, and it's like, wow, that existed. So in other words, I think these things have the perfect amount of sparkle. Now, I know some reviewers out there say they sound a little sibilant to them. Personally, I'm a pretty young guy, have pretty young ears, so unless I'm deafening at a very early age, the sibilance didn't really bother me. I think there was one artist I was listening to where her voice maybe peaked a little bit of a sibilant sound at first, but that was like the only time. It's really no big deal at all, and I think the pros of having that extra sparkle totally outweigh the cons. But if you're really, really sensitive to sibilance and you think it will bother you, perhaps do some research into something that's a little warmer sounding, but I genuinely don't think it's a big deal. Alrighty, for my favorite part, soundstage and imaging. So buckle up. If you're used to cheaper headphones or IEMs or something like that, if you come from AirPods, you're gonna be so blown away by the soundstage something like this can give you. I mean, the amount of times I can hear a sound coming from this side, just slowly drifting around, just all around your head, behind you, in front of you, on top of you, below you. It's just crazy. I've never heard of audio equipment that can really give you that vertical sound presentation, and these totally sell it. There's actually this one song I really thought was cool for testing out the soundstage. It's called Forest of Mysteries, which is a Zelda remix. I'm sure you'll be able to find it if you just look up Forest of Mysteries. But at the start of that track, there's like a thunder clash in the sky. And when that thunder clash plays, you can actually hear it like coming from up here. It's so interesting, and that goes on to affect the footsteps too. It sounds like the walking's happening down here, the thunderclouds happening up there. And, you know, listen to the song for yourself. It's really cool. You'll know what I'm talking about, and if you get these headphones or another nice pair, and you can actually hear what that vertical sound stage sounds like, you're never going to be able to go back to something that doesn't feature that. And particularly, we were talking about the imaging, but to focus a little more on the soundstage itself, there's a little bit more to talk about, a little more cons to sort of take into consideration if you're about to spend this kind of money on headphones. So the soundstage itself, I don't think is the biggest it could be. If I were to describe it, I'd say maybe like it feels about this big around me. And I guess depending on the song and how it's mixed, you can have stuff that sounds like it's coming from like a little bit further away or closer. Kind of depends on the mixing of the song. But for the most part, I would say it's about like a medium between the shoulders for me. So pretty big, a lot bigger than any other headphones I've tried. I know there's some headphones that present soundstage as if you're listening to speakers. So if that's what you're looking for exactly, maybe look for some other options, but I wouldn't let that deter you because I think the imaging more than makes up for it. Plus, a more intimate experience with the vocals just makes them come through so much better. You get some headphones and they take it out so far that the vocalist sounds distant. I don't feel like we have that problem here. It sounds like the vocalist is, you know, right up there talking to you, and I think the soundstage being a little bit more on the medium side isn't an issue at all. I mean, in fact, I'd probably prefer it in the long run. So overall, I think these headphones are stellar on their sound quality. They present all the tracks with brilliant, crystal clear treble, punchy transparent bass, and beautiful mid-range presentation, as well as stellar imaging, great soundstage, and an absolutely artistically beautiful design. But, you know, don't take my word for it. I showed them to a lot of people, and you know what? Why don't you hear one of their reviews for yourself?
I daily drive Astro A10s, which has a much stronger bass response that I tend to like compared to the Meze 109 Pros. However, I did notice in the last songs or testing there was more details, and overall just had a much cleaner sound that I really enjoyed, and I just like the extra details. With Get Lucky, again, much clearer vocals, and I had a lot of details that I just did not notice on my daily drivers of the A10s. And with Motherboard, there's like the water sound in the left ear. Again, very clean and very subtle. Not necessarily overpowering to the song, but still very good. And I also tested out with Anarchy Rainbow. In the beginning, there's some subtle strings, and overall had a nice bass line that I really enjoy. That is, again, just very clean. And the crowd sound towards the end of the chorus was really clear and just had a lot of detail to it. However, there are some super bassy songs that can wind up feeling hollow, and Pegboard Nord's Hero, you can definitely feel in like the about 30 seconds where it's supposed to be like a very heavy, punchy, bassy sound. You're just not really getting with the Pro. So if you're used to heavy bassy, some songs will wind up feeling hollow. However, overall, I really do enjoy a lot of the details and clarity that the Meze 109 Pros offers.
So as you can see, I'm not the only one impressed. I mean, all my friends have been blown away completely. So I have no fear that you will too. Now, I showed it to one more friend. I didn't get any recordings of their thoughts though, and this is what he said. Motherboard by Daft Punk came out when I was 7 years old. Listening to it on these headphones is like hearing it for the first time again. So yeah, the Meze 109 Pros are not playing around at all. Even though, again, it's not a cheap amount to be spending on headphones, but it is worth it if you want something that'll last a lifetime. So before we wrap this video up, I just want to touch a little bit on objective sound. So I talked about what I've gleaned from the sound quality of it, but I'm sure a lot of people watching would like to see the more objective, finer details of the sound quality. So here's a frequency response graph of the headphones. As you can see, they're pretty balanced, maybe featuring a slight U-shape to them, meaning that they have a little extra punch in the bass and maybe a little extra sparkle. But if you are looking for something completely neutral, these might not be the best studio headphones. but they're certainly good audiophile headphones. I mean, they're designed to be fun. I mean, they're a little bit colored, but it's really not a bad thing. You don't always have to have a completely linear sound. In fact, a lot of people think that's boring. And sometimes it can just be too revealing and, make some of the tracks you're listening to sound like garbage. I mean, these can do that. Having headphones this good, you realize what songs are recorded well and what songs aren't. That's something you'll just have to get used to. So lastly, I want to talk about who these headphones are for. For example, if you're coming from just really cheap headphones, are these worth it for you? Like, at what point should you upgrade them? What point should you just be happy with what you got and save $800? So now, if you have cheaper headphones right now, these things, if you upgrade to them, they're gonna blow your socks off. You don't even have to worry about it. These will probably bring you to tears. Hasn't happened to me though. But also, if you have something like the AirPods Pro 2, they're often considered a very solid IEM with a pretty neutral sound and pretty good bass extension. But at the end of the day, your socks are still gonna be knocked off. Because when you have such a small IEM, it just doesn't give you the room for soundstage as easy. I mean, to put it in perspective, the drivers on the Meze 109 Pros are bigger than the entire AirPod case. So it's obviously no competition when it comes to sound. It is totally worth it to spend the extra cash and get yourself something nice. But on the other hand, let's say you don't really care about sound quality as much as you do convenience, noise canceling, all that kind of stuff. In that case, why are you here? Why are you watching reviews on headphones you don't want? Go get your AirPods. Can you at least leave a like while you're here? But yeah, of course, these don't have the same functionality or noise canceling as other options have, but at the same time, they don't sound as garbage as most Bluetooth things do. It's just, at the end of the day, it's a hobby. If music is a hobby to you, if you love just sitting down and listening to music and trying to gleam out all the small, fine little details, then this is for you. You can use these as long as you'd like. I mean, they're designed to be fully serviceable, and every part and piece you can take apart on your own. So I wouldn't worry about breaking them. You can always get a replacement part. This is something, if you keep it nice, it can last you till you're 80 years old. If you're in the market for something like this, you want awesome sound quality, great looks, something that's completely serviceable and will last you a lifetime, I think this is a logical route to go. It's a lot of money, but hopefully you'll only have to spend that money once. Get these and a pair of AirPods Pro and you kind of set. But yeah, I would just say go for it. You have nothing to lose. And when you do go for it in that link in the description. And it's an affiliate link. Please use that, I'm begging you.